Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
Something about Maso's death scene in the Mufasa movie kept me awake at night. The film shows the flood separating the family but never definitively reveals his fate, leaving a critical question. What really happened to Mufasa's father? After rewatching every scene with Apia and analyzing the outsider's storyline, I found connections that hint at something darker beneath the surface than simple drowning. The Lion King franchise has always hidden deeper meanings in its storytelling, and Maso's death is no exception. These subtle clues transform our understanding of the events that shaped Mufasa's journey. The devastating flood that changed everything for Mufasa was one of those moments where life splits into before and after. Picture this terrifying scene from the Mufasa movie where the skies darken suddenly and raindrops start falling faster and harder until they become sheets of water. The calm river that once provided life to the Pride Lands transforms into a raging monster within minutes, catching everyone by surprise. The animals who were peacefully grazing or hunting now scramble in panic, their instincts screaming danger as water levels rise at an alarming rate. It's chaos in its purest form, pure survival mode for every creature caught in nature's fury. Before the waters came rushing through their home, Mufasa's family lived a peaceful existence. Little Mufasa would play among the tall grasses while his parents watched proudly. His father Maso would sometimes demonstrate hunting techniques, teaching his son the patience required to stalk prey. These quiet moments of family bonding became the foundation of who Mufasa would later become. You can almost feel the warmth of those memories when the movie flashes back to them. Moments filled with laughter and security, a serene calm before the devastating storm that would shatter their world. When the flood hits, everything happens in a terrifying blur. The movie captures this with frightening realism as the camera angles shift to show the disorientation everyone feels. The ground beneath their paws disappears, replaced by churning water that carries away everything in its path. The sound design tells us how catastrophic this event is. The roaring water drowns out even the loudest animal cries for help. The most gut-wrenching part is watching Maso's desperate struggle against the current. The animation masterfully captures both panic and determination in his eyes. A father's love battling against impossible odds. We see him fighting with everything he has, his powerful muscles straining against the force of nature itself. There's this brief moment where his paws almost reach Mufasa, where we think maybe they'll make it, but then a massive surge tears them apart. The hopelessness of that moment hits viewers like a physical blow. What's particularly intriguing is how the movie deliberately leaves Maso's fate somewhat ambiguous. We don't see him take his final breath or see a body. The camera follows Mufasa as he's swept away, leaving us to wonder what exactly happened to his father. This storytelling choice opens up possibilities that add layers to the narrative. Did he drown immediately? Did he survive only to meet another fate? These questions linger, creating a mystery that deepens our investment in Mufasa's journey. After being carried for miles, Mufasa eventually washes up on an unfamiliar shore. Alone, frightened, and calling out for parents who don't, and meets his cries is deafening. His small frame against the vast unfamiliar landscape emphasizes just how vulnerable he is now. Everything familiar has been washed away in an instant. The flood's ferocity makes it entirely plausible that Maso couldn't survive. When we see the aftermath, entire habitats destroyed, it hammers home just how deadly this natural disaster was. Lions, despite their strength and power on land, aren't built for surviving these conditions. For decades, Lion King fans have wondered about Mufasa's origins. Who were the lions that raised such a noble king? The flood washed away trees, rocks, and an entire family history that explains why Mufasa's sacrifice for Simba reflected a legacy passed down from father to son. The Mufasa movie finally pulls back the curtain on these mysterious figures who shaped one of Disney's most beloved characters. Maso and Apia were the foundation of everything Mufasa would become. Their influence runs through every decision Mufasa makes as both a father and king, creating an invisible thread connecting 3 generations of lions. When we watch Maso Maso in action, his protective nature jumps off the screen. During the flood, he puts himself directly in harm's way to save his son, swimming against raging currents while using his powerful body as a shield against debris. This wasn't a split-second decision made in panic. It was completely in character for who Maso was. His entire identity centered on keeping his family safe, making sure they had what they needed, and teaching his son how to navigate a world filled with dangers. This willingness to sacrifice everything becomes the blueprint for Mufasa's own approach to fatherhood years later. Maso's selflessness during the flood mirrors what Mufasa would later do in the gorge with Simba. The movie shows us this wasn't coincidence, it was inheritance. The values that made Mufasa such a beloved king were passed down directly from his father. When Mufasa leaps into the stampede to save Simba, he follows the example set by Maso years before. Adult Mufasa carries Maso's legacy visibly. The physical similarities between father and son are striking. Their powerful builds, distinctive manes, expressions, and mannerisms. The movie makes these visual connections deliberately to show that Mufasa carries his father's entire approach to life. Every time Mufasa stands overlooking the Pride Lands, Maso's presence lives on through his son. Apia's role is equally significant. In one pivotal scene, she guides young Mufasa to a waterhole at dawn, pointing out how creatures from mice to elephants gather together, explaining that the balance keeps us all connected even when we can't see the bonds. This wisdom about interconnectedness becomes the foundation for Mufasa's entire philosophy as king. Even after being separated by the flood, her influence guides him. Their eventual reunion in Mali confirms that her teachings stayed with him through years apart, shaping the worldview that would define his reign. Before the disaster, their life represented everything a lion family could hope for: safety, abundance, and harmony. They raised Mufasa in this peaceful environment, teaching him values that would eventually make him legendary. None could have predicted how dramatically their path would change. The movie establishes that Maso's character was defined by protection and presence. If he didn't return to find Mufasa after being separated, something catastrophic must have happened. The ambiguity surrounding his exact fate mirrors real-life tragedy. Sometimes we never get perfect closure about what happened to those we've lost, but their influence continues to shape us regardless. That ambiguity about Maso's fate isn't just for dramatic effect. It might be the movie's way of hiding a darker truth. The floodwaters eventually receded, but what if something far more dangerous was waiting for Maso when he finally dragged himself to dry land? But nature's fury may not have been the only enemy that day. The outsiders were everywhere, hunting down any lions strong enough to stand against them. When we watch Mufasa's story, we're so focused on the flood that we miss this entire other threat that was spreading across the Pride Lands at the exact same time. The outsiders, led by the ruthless Kiros, terrorized other lion prides throughout the region. They operated as a calculating, organized force with Kiros at the center, convinced that he alone deserved to rule as the one true Lion King. Sarabai's experience provides a crucial clue. She tells us the outsiders attacked her own pride, forcing her to flee and seek safety elsewhere. This reveals that Kiros and his followers were actively eliminating other lions across the region when the flood hit, disregarding established rules because Kiros believed he should be the only ruler. What's especially revealing is that these same outsiders later arrive in Melee, the exact place where Mufasa ended up after the flood. This can't be coincidence. It shows that Kiros and his pride were constantly moving, tracking potential rivals and expanding their control. If they reached Melee, they could have easily been present in other areas where flood survivors might have washed ashore. The most chilling aspect of the outsiders is their targeting strategy. Kiros systematically eliminated strong male lions who might challenge his authority. And who fits that description perfectly? Maso, a respected, powerful lion who protected his family and territory, representing exactly the kind of threat Kiros couldn't tolerate. Consider this scenario. Maso survives the initial flood, barely dragging himself to shore somewhere downstream. Exhausted and injured, he desperately tries to find his family. In this weakened state, he encounters Kiros and the outsiders who recognize him as a potential rival. Even at full strength, Maso would struggle against an entire pride of hostile lions. In his flood-weakened condition, he wouldn't stand a chance. The timing and location make this theory plausible. The outsiders were expanding their territory during the flood, potentially placing them in position to encounter a vulnerable Maso. Their pattern of eliminating rival males gave them clear motivation, and their presence in Melee confirms they tracked lions across the region. This adds a new layer of tragedy to Maso Maso's story. He might have survived nature's fury only to fall victim to something more calculating, the deliberate violence of other lions. Imagine surviving such a catastrophic natural disaster only to be killed by your own kind. If this is what happened, it transforms our understanding of Mufasa's family tragedy into a story about both nature's destructive power and the dangerous political landscape where ambitious lions eliminated anyone in their way. Maso would have died still searching for his family, never knowing if Mufasa and Apia survived, while they never learned what truly happened to him. The fate of Maso and Mufasa follows an eerie pattern that can't be dismissed as mere coincidence. There's something almost supernatural about how history seems to repeat itself across generations in the Pride Lands, creating a cycle where fathers face almost identical ends while protecting their sons. Have you noticed that when we place these two tragic stories side by side, they mirror each other in ways that feel intentionally designed to show us something deeper about the Lion King's legacy? When Mufasa throws himself into the stampede to save Simba, we witness a profound reflection of Maso's sacrifice years before in the raging flood waters. Both fathers instinctively place themselves between danger and their children, creating a legacy of protection that transcends generations. Their stories intertwine like ancient baobab roots, drawing strength from the same soil of paternal devotion. In each case, sons watched helplessly as overwhelming natural forces claimed their fathers, embedding identical emotional wounds that would shape both Mufasa and Simba's journeys toward kingship. The parallel tragedies share another disturbing similarity. Both deaths involve unstoppable natural forces. Scar deliberately orchestrated Mufasa's death through the stampede. This raises questions about Maso's fate. Though the movie presents the flood as a natural disaster, the perfect alignment of these narratives invites speculation. Could someone have manipulated circumstances around Maso's death as well? The symmetry feels too precise to ignore. These fathers' absences created similar voids in their sons' lives. Both Mufasa and later Simba navigated a fatherless existence, reconstructing their identities from broken foundations. This pattern of young lions discovering their purpose without paternal guidance became the catalyst for their transformations. The Pride Land's history flows like a circular river, carrying similar trials downstream to each new generation. Simba carried the burden of false guilt, believing he caused his father's death until discovering Scar's treachery years later. Young Mufasa likely experienced similar anguish after the flood separated him from Maso. Did he wonder if his actions somehow contributed to his father's disappearance? Did self-blame shadow his early days just as it would later haunt his son? These psychological echoes add depth to their interconnected stories. Their sacrifices illuminate what may be the Lion King saga's essential truth, that profound love manifests through willingness to surrender everything. Their deaths, while tragic, stand as testaments to parental devotion in its purest form, like twin stars guiding the Pride Land's moral compass. What gives these parallels their power is how they reveal the circular nature of life. Each generation inherits their predecessor's strengths alongside their struggles. Within this pattern lies something profound about resilience and love's continuity. Maso's sacrifice lives on through Mufasa's actions, which then inspire Simba's journey. Their stories merge like tributaries, forming a mighty river, creating an unbreakable chain of protection that defines the true meaning of kingship in the Pride Lands. In the chaos of that raging flood, Maso faced the most impossible choice any parent could imagine. What's often overlooked in this pivotal scene is how deliberate Maso's actions truly were. As the waters surged around father and son, there's a critical moment where everything changes. A split second where Maso could have saved himself, but instead made a conscious decision that would echo through generations of Pride Land rulers. When we examine the flood scene, we see Maso got to grab him and threw him near the rocks to hold on. This calculated act of love reveals Maso's priorities when facing mortal danger. He actively positioned Mufasa towards safety at the expense of securing his own. Despite the current pulling at Mufasa being really strong, Maso continued fighting against the overwhelming force rather than seeking higher ground for himself. His movements show no hesitation between self-preservation and saving his child. Every action is directed toward one purpose: ensuring Mufasa's survival. This single-minded focus reveals everything about Maso's character and what he valued most in his final moments. The visual storytelling masterfully conveys the weight of Maso's choice. We see fear in his eyes as the water rises, transforming into determination when he spots Mufasa in danger. The film shows us this transformation because it wants us to understand that Maso's fate was heroic. He chose Mufasa's life over his own. After Maso throws Mufasa toward the rocks, we don't see Maso anymore after that scene. This abrupt disappearance speaks volumes about the finality of his sacrifice. The film doesn't need to explicitly show what happens next, because the message is clear. Maso gave everything to save his son. The current that threatened Mufasa would have been impossible to survive after expending so much energy to save another. Later, Apia's words to Mufasa that his father lived on inside of him take on deeper meaning when we understand Maso's choice. This acknowledgement shows that Maso's sacrifice was an expression of who he truly was, a legacy continuing through his son. This mirrors what Rafiki would later tell Simba, creating a through line of paternal sacrifice that defines these royal lions. These words from Apia transform Maso's physical absence into a spiritual presence guiding Mufasa. After his father's sacrifice, Mufasa would never feel the need to go find Mele, suggesting that Maso's influence shaped his son's decisions long after the floodwaters receded. Maso's sacrifice is portrayed through intentional visual cues and emotional weight. We feel the tension, fear, and resolve as Maso makes his choice. The panic in Apia and Maso's eyes as the water approaches sets up a moment of immense emotional impact, establishing the foundation for understanding Mufasa's character and his eventual sacrifice for Simba. This deliberate choice represents the purest form of parental love, putting your child's survival above your own without question. It's this exact quality that Mufasa would later embody in the Gorge, creating a spiritual continuity of self-sacrifice that defines what it means to be a true king and father. While the sheer power of the flood provides the most visible explanation for Maso's fate, the film deliberately weaves a tapestry of ambiguity that invites us to question what really happened that fateful day. The movie presents us with two distinct possibilities, each compelling in its own right. Did Maso perish beneath those relentless waters, or did he survive only to encounter a more calculated threat in the form of Kiros and his outsiders? The deliberate absence of a definitive answer creates one of the most intriguing mysteries in the Lion King universe. The visual storytelling strongly favors the flood theory. When we examine the expressions on Apia and Maso's faces during those chaotic moments, we can read their understanding of the imminent danger. Their expressions reflect a recognition that survival might be impossible against such overwhelming natural force. The filmmakers use these silent reactions as testimony to the severity of the situation, suggesting Maso likely didn't survive. The drowning theory gains credibility through the narrative emphasis on the dam breaking when the elephant crashed through it. This catastrophic moment launched a chain reaction that swept young Mufasa away and led to Maso's disappearance. The intensity of this scene, coupled with Apia's later certainty about Maso's demise, builds a strong case that the flood claimed his life despite his tremendous strength. Yet the movie carefully plants seeds of an alternative explanation through its introduction of the outsiders. These antagonists were actively moving through the region during the exact time period of the flood. Their arrival in Mele, precisely where Mufasa washed ashore, creates a geographic connection that warrants consideration. If Maso somehow dragged himself from the waters downstream, weakened and separated from his pride, he would have made an ideal target. Kiros' ambition adds weight to this possibility. His systematic elimination of rival males throughout the region would make encountering a lion of Maso's stature, especially in a vulnerable state, an opportunity. A lion king separated from his pride, physically compromised from fighting the current, would present little challenge to Kiros and his followers. The deliberate choice not to show Maso's body preserves the mystery while avoiding disturbing imagery for younger viewers, keeping both possibilities alive in the viewer's mind. Apia's certainty about Maso's fate suggests firsthand knowledge or absolute conviction, feelings unlikely if there remained any chance of his survival. Her statements to Mufasa carry the weight of someone who has accepted a painful truth rather than someone clinging to hope. When balancing all evidence, the flood remains the most likely cause of Maso's death. Yet the film's deliberate ambiguity allows the outsider's theory to exist as a compelling alternative, adding additional layers of tragedy to an already heartbreaking story. What emerges as most significant isn't how Maso died, but the thematic purpose it serves. Whether he perished in the flood or at the claws of Kiros, Maso placed his son's life above his own, creating the template that Mufasa would later follow with Simba. Could this legacy of paternal sacrifice be the true message, transcending the mystery of his final moments? The legacy of Maso's sacrifice mirrors the future actions of his son Mufasa in ways that are too powerful to ignore. When Maso threw Mufasa towards safety during that catastrophic flood, he established a pattern that would repeat when Mufasa saved Simba from the stampede years later. Both fathers chose their sons' lives over their own without hesitation. This sacrifice created a profound emotional bond across generations of Pride Land rulers. Whether claimed by raging waters or faced with outsiders, Maso's ultimate fate parallels the uncertainty of Mufasa's own death. His legacy of self-sacrifice continues to define the Pride Lands. Which version of Maso's final moments resonates most with you? Share your thoughts below.